Welcome to Eyeview Podcast, where we bridge the gap between perspectives so that I can venture into viewing the world as you see, and so you can see the world as I view. Welcome to Eyeview Podcast. Good morning, my beautiful guests. To those of you that don't know, my name is Ash. I'm from Eyeview Ethnic Trust. And this morning I've got Gloria and Gatluak, who I will let them to introduce themselves.
Hello, good morning. My name is Gloria Vázquez. I come from Spain and I've been here in New Zealand, Aotearoa, for the last about 30 years. I arrived the first time in 1988. And it is a privilege to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ash, for arranging this. My name is Gatluak Chuol. I'm originally from Sudan. It was Sudan when I left, and then they chopped it up into two, so I not agree. So I belong to the new one, South Sudan. Now they have a new name for it. They call it Sudan South. Because both of them, they want to maintain the name Sudan. That one becomes Sudan North, and this one becomes Sudan South. So this is where I came from. So I came to New Zealand in 2015, and it has been quite a journey, being new to the country and resettling, integrating into the community, and challenges. And I think it's good to talk about some of those. I've been working in the community now for like 20 years.
Wow.
It's all about advocacy, and this is where my heart is. I see it all the time, and I've been part of it.
What experience have you had with racism in New Zealand or even overseas? If you haven't experienced anything in here, just let us know what your thoughts are and what experiences you've had.
I think for the matter of simplicity in New Zealand context, when I first came in 2015, as a new person, you see so many things, and it's so hard to filter them. And when I first came, we rented an apartment. It was crazy because police came all the time, drugs going around, and there's no weekend without throwing bottles around, fighting. And
So is it the neighbourhood that you're living in?
Yeah, the neighbourhood.
Oh, wow, okay,
It's very crazy in South Auckland, in Otahu. And they have to press, the emergency bell early in the morning, 3 a.m. in the morning, and you have to go out. It's raining and it's cold, and you have small babies. That this guy is always very high, and it was like, shouting at me, go back to where you come from, go back to your country, you're not supposed to be here. And I was like, man, you need some help. And he did not stop there. He broke into my car, took the engine, and took the radio, broke all the four windows, and I was like, man, this is not good. You need some help. Yeah, and I was like, this is the time I just came. I thought, New Zealand is like that. And then one day I went to the Manukau, Westfield Manukau shopping mall. And then I got this man, he pat me in the back and he said, would you like to sit down for coffee? And then I was like, but I don't even know you. And it was like, that's why I need you to sit down for a coffee, because I want to know you. I was like, oh man, it's like all this has been washed away.
Change your perception, nice.
The perception has changed. I was like, oh man, this is another side of New Zealand.
Nice.
So that's my first encounter with racism.
What about you, Gloria?
My experience was a little bit different. I came here from, I've been a migrant here since 1988. And my first time here was here for 4 years with my former Kiwi husband. And I don't think that I noticed any racism at all the first time I was here. I think I was a lot younger, my early 20s. And, I really fitted in with the community really well. Having a Kiwi husband made it easier, I think, for integration. I could speak English when I got here. So, and I think when I was telling people that they will hear my funny accent, for them, there were not that many Spaniards around. And when I said I was from Spain, people were quite, oh, really? So Spain seemed to be quite a nice place for everybody here in New Zealand. I never felt there was any racism, anywhere. However, when I came back the second time, I went back to live in Spain. I had my first son, And I was thinking that really impacted me a lot. I came back with my 2-month-old baby, nearly 3, and I was looking for housing. Yeah, I couldn't work. I didn't want to work at that stage. I went back to university, and I had a little baby, starting a new life. And I remember ringing up to rent units in those days because I couldn't afford a house, little apartment units. And I remember ringing up, and every unit I was ringing up, when I ran up and say, is it available? Can I go and see? My ex-husband was working all day, so I had to do that. And they'll say, no, the place has been taken. And then I kept saying, how weird, and I was thinking, I'm always late. That was in the 90, when I came back in 95. And I was thinking, how weird that everything is. So I said to my ex-husband, why don't you ring up to A, B, C, and D?
Oh, check.
You wouldn't believe it.
No.
The first one he rang, oh, yes, it's available, because he was a Kiwi.
Kiwi accent.
And I really felt, and he said, oh, it's just, darling, because of your accent. And I was thinking, that's so racist. I'm sorry. I remember thinking,
you're no longer included.
No,
you feel, yeah.
It broke my heart because I had this vision of inclusiveness, and I always felt, that time I thought, oh my gosh, they don't even know what I look like. It was over the phone, the judgmental person at the other end of the line really broke my heart in a way, But anyway, so eventually we, of course, with his help, we found the place, And then I was, probably because I was a mother, I was, more aware of differences. And I felt, okay, if you look at, let's define racism, It's not just because you are, from one race or the other. It's just the accent. It's, it's just the discrimination because we don't making us feel we don't belong. And, that takes a long time for you to feel that you belong. I now say, I'm a Kiwi, I'm a Spanish Kiwi, I belong here. I do have a different accent from the normal Kiwi, but it doesn't stop me feeling,
And that's your identity.
And that's my identity. Yeah. I've been here for 30 years. I'm happy I've got a different accent. I don't want to change it. This is me,
But imagine had you not had Kiwi support. Imagine being a new mum, or what would you do? You'd keep applying and then...
I know. I'd be homeless. Yeah, probably be homeless. Yeah. That was awful. But honestly, it took me a while to realize why I wasn't given a chance to go and see the place. We could afford it. We had the money, It wasn't like we were not going to pay or anything, but yeah, I felt really bad, yeah.
What about... And what about racism in regards to you experiencing it, but it hasn't involved you? So is it at your workplace where you've had to, encounter and call it out? Have you experienced? Because I feel like people that have experienced racism, like I've experienced it, and every time I see, I'm like, hey, like I always call it out, or I try my best to call it out.
I must admit I haven't seen any racism at work, which is very lucky, and it's not like I'm blind or anything.
Yeah.
I work in a very multicultural, multilingual place. It's a bliss. I work with many, many people from different backgrounds. Being in Auckland and working in one of the biggest universities makes a big difference. And I think we're all quite, we're all very open-minded. Lots of our migrants or refugees, or so it's a really good. I'm lucky, yeah. But I have seen some, some other races sort of instances, and I have come across some of them as well. I will give you a chance to talk about yours.
Yeah, as someone who works in the community, I experience it all the time from the people I try to help out. Yeah, one of the stories we had last time, we had a very brutal landlord. This poor family, the next door is somebody who was deported from Australia because he, killed somebody or whatever crime he committed there. And he was wearing the ankle bracelet, and he would threaten the family. I would burn down your house. I would kill off all of you. Go back to where you come from. And it's a case of mental health. She got depression diagnosis, and the husband as well. And then I said, okay, let me go and see your house. I went to the house. The house I think is crumbling. It's too old. I don't know how long ago it was built. It's like falling down, When it is raining, it's leaking, mold everywhere. It's not livable.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, this is not good. And then I contact the landlord, and the landlord says, the house is good. I check it all the time. I was like, I'm speaking on behalf of this family. I got the pictures. Say, no, the house is good. They never complain. I say they never complain because none of them speaks English. He was like playing it down. I was like, okay. And then I got all the details and the lease and everything. And then I wrote him a letter. If it is okay for you, can you get a lawyer? Because this one will end up in court. This is an abuse and not acceptable in New Zealand.
But I think we go back to my little example, which wasn't as bad as that. But, housing, we have a shortage of housing at the moment. And, migrants are probably, some of them, when they don't speak English well, when we don't, there's certain things that the landlords can choose who they want there. And as you said, abuse happens because you're so desperate to get a roof over your head that you think, I'll take anything,
because they don't have option.
We don't have, some people don't have as many
and
options.
And some of us came from brutal regimes, we back then we were not allowed to speak up, so you come here with that mindset,
Absolutely.
You don't complain, you don't even know where you can address your concerns.
No.
And he said a family got a different house and to a different landlord, and the landlord is like a family member,
Nice.
checking on them every day, giving some food, and was like, light at the end of the tunnel for them, Things like that. Once you work in the community, you see a lot of things.
Yeah.
They're there all the time, and they are increasing as well. We work with a very interesting community. These are the people who have no right documentation. And some of them, detained in jails and detention centers. And if you come from a country where there's war, you can do anything to get here. You can forgerize documents, you can come with false documents, you can do anything to get out. I tried
You've got
that.
nothing to lose.
I tried that in Kenya,
Like
but it didn't work.
Yeah, of
You can do anything. You can do anything. You can do anything to get out. Some of them, they say, I think better to be in jail than to be sent back where I came from. But, with New Zealand, our humanity is quite high compared to the rest of the country.
Yeah.
But I think we have a lot of work to do.
I think that's a really good point that you're making, because for me, when we talk about migrants, I think we have to keep in mind the difference between all of us. I'm a migrant. I've chosen to be here. I'm very lucky. For me, it was a lot easier having the choice of going back anytime I want. In fact, I've been going back to Spain quite often. I keep going back. Whereas for refugees or asylum seekers, it's a one-way trip. You're coming here. You don't get a choice. As we know, refugees, they get here through the quota. They have to be, there's a procedure to be chosen to be here. They don't know, they can't choose the country. They just get sent to one of the countries that welcomes them. So I think for all the listeners that we tend to, you might tend to think all of us are migrants. We are migrants, but within the migrants, we have quite different groups there. And some of us have it a lot easier than others.
I was refugee for 20 years in two countries.
I can't imagine.
And I changed camps from one camp to another. It was not my choice to change camps. Maybe the camp would be burned down.
Absolutely.
And then you run away and get to another camp, and UN will register you there, and then you become a resident of that camp. And maybe after 2-3 years, the camp will change, the policy will change, you will be transferred to another camp. It depends on the policies of the hosting country.
Absolutely.
So you don't have a choice.
No, you never
When
do.
this resettlement came, I was in a camp of maybe 20 some million refugees.
Yeah.
And if New Zealand come to take maybe 10 people out of 20 million, just wait the luck you have. To be picked for a settlement, you have to have a very good story as to why would you be one out of these millions to be picked.
Yeah.
People can find a way to get out. So as a refugee, you don't have any choice. So they tell you, based on your story, you're qualified to go to Canada. Or this one will go to Norway, this one will go to Germany, this one will go to Australia. Maybe you need to go to America because you have some connection there, and then you will be told no, you go to Sweden. So you don't have a choice. And once you say no, somebody's on the line.
What would you say the root causes of racism is?
For me, it's stereotyping and fear. I think when people see something different, or they hear something different, the fear takes over, and they think, this is different, and also stereotyping and those sort of underlying sort of things that.
The fear of accepting a difference, or
I think the fear of having something so different sometimes, because some people might be, the rude, like the customs, like, everything's so different that people might be scared of having to be part of that change. They don't realize that a lot of people, that's what I think. I mean, this is not based on research, but my feeling is that, let's say that I have, there's a huge community of Spaniards, and, let's go back to my community, and, everybody thinks, oh my God, in the neighborhood, all these people, might be partying all day. We don't want to be like them, they're so different, and all that thing, and I think that's, I don't know, That's what I think. What do you think?
I think you're right. Stereotyping is one of them, but I also think there's element of mindset. The mindset has not changed. There's a narrative from the some sections of the media. When the refugees and the asylum seekers are portrayed, they come to New Zealand and to seek a better life. So some people who are not informed, who have no knowledge about that, would be thinking, they're coming to take our jobs, they're coming to rely on social system, social welfare system, they're coming to take everything. So as somebody who does not know what is happening, you will take that the way it is coming to you, and you don't have an ability to filter that. So I think it's a lack of information.
Yeah.
They are not aware of those who used to say racist comments to other people, but once they get engaged with those people, and then they become, friendly. So I think there's a gap of, information right there.
I don't know. I think that New Zealand being a country that, all of us, most of us are migrants here. If we look historically how New Zealand started, I think, for me, I think it's a little bit different. In Auckland, we're very lucky. I think Auckland is amazing, like with all the multicultural sort of, so many cultures and so many groups, and people are so, and also tolerant. I think the instances of racism that we can probably experience sometimes is smaller towns, and I think I mean, this is a big word, but it comes to ignorance as well. Because people don't know what other people are like. But my own experience is that New Zealanders are really welcoming, and in general, compared to other countries. I lived in other countries, and I think it is no comparison.
Yeah. With racism in New Zealand, I think we are way, way better than some countries.
Absolutely.
And I feel like we're willing to learn as well. Like I feel like as a country, we're always willing to learn, or we're open to, I guess, platforms like this, like hearing stories and sharing stories. Wherein with other countries, I don't think that we're that privileged. And
I wouldn't know, but I think the best thing here in New Zealand is that we're such a new country, and everybody wants the best for everybody, and I think things are happening fast. There are a lot of people, a lot of kiwis, and next generation is a mixture of everything. Our own kids who are mixing with other. So I think we're going to become probably one of the most tolerant and the best country. We are one of the best, but we're going to become a lot better, and we will be a great example for so many other countries.
I think the best part of it is that people are so open to the dialogue. They want to talk about it. They want to come out. They want to have open discussion about it. How it happens, how it can be resolved. This is a very good positive mood.
Absolutely.
As parents, it's really important that we're very careful with what we're saying around our children growing up. We're very careful about the terms that we're using and the jokes. The little. Just a little joke. No, that's no longer okay, because your child is going to take that to school.
Absolutely.
And then that's not a joke to somebody else. Yeah, I feel like that for me, that's one way to combat racism, is to make sure that my daughter, it's at home, that she doesn't grow up with, anything like that, and that she sees everybody equally, and that. So for me, that's how I want to combat it. What do you want to see, or what do you think needs to be done more in regards to combating racism?
When I moved the neighborhood, I rented a house in a different neighborhood, and when I came, that particular house, I think they had a bad experience with a resident who lived there before. It's terrible, I think, terrified the neighborhood. And when we came with my family, everybody was quiet, just looking at us. And one family came, hi, how are you? Welcome to the neighborhood. Are you from Zimbabwe? I was like, no. South Africa? No.
Keep guessing.
Keep guessing. I said, from Sudan. Oh, okay. And like for a week, they were just watching us. And then after 2 weeks, we are surprised with some gifts. Some people will leave food at the door, veggies and carts and all that. And one guy came, he was like, you brought peace into this neighborhood. We had terrible resident here, and you're coming here. It's like really a blessing. And it's good to, that's what made me feel better. He said, you brighten the neighborhood. Like, make it a different color. And then there was one guy, he took all the emails of the neighbors, and then he threw out a barbecue. He's a doctor working in Auckland Hospital. And I didn't know him.
Like a neighborhood barbecue.
Yeah, neighborhood barbecue. And then we came out, oh man, the best ever.
Nice.
Some of them are like my friends now.
Nice.
Things like that, they bring people together, share a lot of things, and I get a lot of my advice from them now. People I did not even know before, because of this connection, And also one of school of my children asked me to be a board member of the school, and then I was like, I have never been a board member. I don't even know what it means. He said, we want you to be there if you have time. I said, what for? He said, we are after the multiculturalism, promoting diversity and all that. It makes me feel better.
Yeah.
And the way the schools are taking it,
it's amazing.
Diversity in the schools. I was like, oh man, this is so good.
I was also very heavily involved with from preschool to primary, intermediate, and high school with my children's education, and it was so wonderful to be part of the whole growing, of everybody, and to be part of the decisions made at the school. And I felt as a different, multicultural, different view, And as you said, what can I do? But it's a lot we can do there, and show other.
So New Zealand now, I think statistically is about 240 ethnicities.
Yeah.
So it's growing so fast, and if you don't want to change, the change will change you. It's coming. It's good to be a part of it. I had an incident last time where one of the guy, I think he's a European background, and he was like, why don't you go back where you come from? I was like, it depends who came here first. So you came here first, you need to go first, And
I think it's okay to ask questions if you come across somebody so different, because some of us, might see people that are so different, and let the kids, or just ask, where do you come from? And that dress, how sometimes you see people wearing this beautiful dress. Oh, is that a traditional dress where you come from? Oh, that's different. So it's just nice to be curious, I think, rather than saying, oh my God, look at the dress.
There's one thing good with New Zealanders, they are very polite, very polite, and this is how they start the conversation, trying to know you based on, they can start from what you wear. Oh, this is a handmade. These are not main questions. The person wants to know you more. He's opening up.
Exactly.
He's opening up, and this is how you start, integrating into the cultural system. Your culture is a pride for New Zealand because it is, all these cultures that make New Zealand so great. So yours is a part of it. Don't try to something different. No, it's a pride of New Zealand.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being part of our very first podcast, and thank you for sharing your experience and your knowledge, and definitely have these guys here again. Thank you.
This episode is funded by New Zealand Lottery Grants Board. Thank you for your support and generosity.